Good morning, Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam Sangha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 8. And we're going to read several verses. So starting with text 30 to 35, and then we'll do the purport to 35. So text 30, and this is Nārada Muni speaking to Dhruva Maharaj. Now you have decided to undertake the mystic process of meditation under the instruction of your mother, just to achieve the mercy of the Lord. But in my opinion, such austerities are not possible for any ordinary man. It is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 31. Nārada Muni continued, after trying this process for many, many births and remaining unattached to material contamination, placing themselves continually in trance and executing many types of austerities, many mystic yogis were unable to find the end of the path of God realization. For this reason, my dear boy, you should not endeavor for this. It will not be successful. It is better that you go home. When you are grown up, by the mercy of the Lord, you will get a chance for these mystic performances. At that time, you may execute this function. One should try to keep himself satisfied in any condition of life, whether distress or happiness, which is offered by the supreme will. A person who endures in this way is able to cross over the darkness of nescience very easily. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. So we'll do the full text 35. Now Dhruva Maharaj is speaking again in reply to Nārada. Dhruva Maharaj said, my dear Lord Nārada-ji, for a person whose heart is disturbed by the material conditions of happiness and distress, whatever you have so kindly explained for attainment of peace of mind is certainly a very good instruction. But as far as I am concerned, I am covered by ignorance, and this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are various classes of men. One class is called akamis, referring to those who have no material desire. Desire must exist, either material or spiritual. Material desire arises when one wants to satisfy one's personal senses. One who is ready to sacrifice anything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be said to have spiritual desire. Dhruva did not accept the instruction given by the great Saint Nārada because he thought himself unfit for such instruction, which prohibited all material desires. It is not a fact, however, that those who have material desires are prohibited from worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the essential instruction from the life of Dhruva. He frankly admitted that his heart was full of material desires. He was very much affected by the cruel words of his stepmother, whereas those who are spiritually advanced do not care about anyone's condemnation or adoration. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that persons who are actually advanced in spiritual life do not care for the dual behavior of this material world. But Dhruva Maharaj frankly admitted that he was not beyond the affliction of material distress and happiness. He was confident that the instruction given by Nārada was valuable, yet he could not accept it. The question raised here is whether or not a person afflicted by material desires is fit to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The answer is that everyone is fit to worship him. Even if one has many material desires to fulfill, he should take to Krishna consciousness and worship the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is so merciful that he fulfills everyone's desires. Through this narration, it will become very clear that no one is barred from worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even if one has many material desires. So again, the translation for this verse, text 35, is Dhruva Maharaj said, "My dear Lord Nārada Ji, for a person whose heart is disturbed by the material conditions of happiness and distress, whatever you have so kindly explained for attainment of peace of mind is certainly a very good instruction. But as far as I am concerned, I am covered by ignorance, and this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart." So, Oma Jnana Timirandasya, Jnananjana Shalakaya, Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtyatarishtarne. So this, I found this verse very hope-giving, and this purport as well. And I imagine that most people would find this hope-giving, that we're in this world, struggling with our senses, and then to hear that it's okay, that we can still approach Krishna even if we have material desire. So in today's discussion, I want to look at material desire and then discuss some ways to deal with it. And we can brainstorm this. So I came up with 4 main approaches that I want to discuss, and then there can be more in our discussion later. So, like Prabhupada says in the purport, it's impossible to be desireless. As spiritual beings, we are full of consciousness, and that means we're also full of desire. Like, it's just a natural part of being a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, because Krishna is full of desire and we're parts of him. So it's a natural part of our nature. So if we try to become desireless, that's, first of all, it's not possible. But if we're in that kind of mood, like I really want to become desireless, that's actually a desire. I heard someone saying this in the class. I thought that was interesting, that the attempt to become desireless is a form of desire. Like, I want to be free of desire, right? So that is, you can't really get rid of it, even if you're trying to get rid of it. And then we remember from the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna says the mind's more difficult to control than the wind, and that Arjuna is expressing to Krishna that it's more difficult to control than the wind, feels impossible. And that's where desire is rooted, is in the mind. And so if we're not able to control the wind, then what to speak of our mind that's full of these desires. And then also just reflecting on the intensity of desire when it comes down to materially. There's that verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about, like, you're first contemplating, right? And that happens in the brain. We're like contemplating, oh, I wish I had that. And then it starts growing. And then from there, we get attached. We like latch on to that. I need that in order to be happy. And now I can't rest in peace until I get it, that kind of mood. And from there, lust just gets aggravated and inflamed. And then we get angry because it's not coming. I want it now. And then we get frustrated, angry. And then this leads to delusion, like completely just forgetting our real self and like thinking that this is going to make me happy and I'm my body and so on. And then from there, we lose our memory, and in the sense of forgetting our real self. So we get so lost in that. And then from there, intelligence is lost, and then we fall down again into the material pool. So it's quite heavy. Like in these verses, Krishna is giving this like flow of what happens as soon as that seed of desire and material desire enters the mind. Then it leads down to this quite dismal ending of like, oh, again, back in the material pool, totally lost in this situation. So I'm sharing that to like kind of reflect on the difficult, the really sobering situation we're in, because we are beings that are full of desire, and we are in a world where we think we can get those desires met or those needs met through material energy. But when we do it, we follow this process and we end up being dragged back down and over in this material pool. So what do we do with our material desires? I think the answer is easy. That is easy, and if someone is fully free of material desire and is just really wanting to serve Krishna and has replaced those material desires with wanting to please Krishna, because then that we still have desire, but our desires to serve, and therefore it doesn't, for pure devotees who are free of material desire, this is not a relevant discussion. But for the majority of us in this world who are seeking to become more sincere spiritual beings and more connected to our real essence, then this discussion of like, what do we practically do with material desires that come up in the mind is a really relevant question. So like I mentioned, I came up with 4 sort of ideas to reflect on, or possibilities of how to navigate material desire. So the first one is redirecting our misdirected energy. So like, we know we have desire, so like, let me redirect it and somehow find a way to connect my desires to Krishna. And there's that actually in the book Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. Bob Cohen at the time, now Brahmatirtha Prabhu, there's a section in there where he's telling Prabhupada, it's near the end of the book, and he's saying, Prabhupada's asking him about, like, are you basically, Bob Cohen is saying, I don't know if I want to fully take on this process because it means having to let go of all material desire. And in his response to that, Prabhupada's saying that when you put iron into fire, it becomes like fire. So if you take your material desires and the things, he said, we don't have to let go of the things that we use, we just have to channel them towards Krishna. So, and then he referred to the cushion he was sitting on and said, Prabhupada said that, see, here I'm sitting on a cushion and I have a typewriter, and I'm not getting rid of those things, I'm just shifting the way that I use them. So I'm basically redirecting towards Krishna, so connecting back to Krishna. So I was reflecting on that. That's a really nice, I feel like it's very encouraging to think about what are some of my desires and how can I connect those. So if I really love to dance or cook or do music or write, then it doesn't take too much to jump from that to realizing, oh yeah, I can connect those very easily to Krishna, right? Those are very connectable. Like, if it's something, there's even ways that we can stretch our mind. If it's not as obvious, we can think, oh, is there a way I can connect this to Krishna? So of course, with food, we connect it by offering it, right? We have our tongue, we have all these material desires, like, oh, I just want a cheesecake. Okay, let me at least offer it. So I'm connecting that and purifying my desire through connecting it to Krishna. What if it's like something like, I really love going on roller coasters. So then in our mind, we can think, well, it's hard to directly connect, but maybe as I'm going down the roller coaster, I can like call out to Krishna and there's ways to connect things. I mean, it might be more of a stretch, but there are, just the thought process itself is purifying, just to think like, I wonder how I can bring Krishna into this. Like, I'm going to watch a movie. How can I bring Krishna? How can I bring my spiritual knowledge into this and apply it and make it, bring Krishna into my life more? So brainstorming itself is really helpful for our material desires, getting that higher taste, like purifying our desires. So then the second thing is desires that are harder to meet, the ones that are, there's some things that we have control over more than others. So if I'm really craving a pizza, I can go to the store, buy the ingredients, make it, offer it, and I can connect it to Krishna, and I can sort of, in that way, satisfy that desire. But some things are harder, and they're the bigger ones of life. Like, I would like to shift my career, or I would like to have a family or a partner, things that are more controlled by our destiny and our heart. We can't just go out and grab it. It's something that that comes to us or not, and we have to navigate that, right? So in those cases, we can use those desires to really intensify our relationship with Krishna by turning to him and and sharing our troubled heart. Like, I really feel confused. I would love to shift my occupation and I don't know how to do that. And no one seems to be responding to my applications or whatever, right? And then we just turn to Krishna with that. And a couple of weeks ago in our discussion, somebody mentioned that Urmila Prabhu said that we can take those desires and we can say, okay, we can pray to Krishna, please, if you so desire, fulfill it. And if it's not for the best, then please take it away. I don't want this anymore. I can't deal with the state of constantly being in that space of wanting. And I had a conversation with Hridayananda Maharaj a few months ago where he said, don't try to solve these things on your own. Like, do it with Krishna, like these bigger things, these bigger desires that are really life callings, or or what we feel inspired to do. Turn to Krishna and make him part of that. So like, it's me and Krishna, and let's look at this together. Let's not do it separate from Krishna. And in doing that, Krishna can transform our desires. So if I turn to him and it's really not for my best in this life to have a certain thing or whatever, then we can pray to Krishna, like, please, take this and transform, allow me to move through this and transform me. And there's a story with a disciple of Prabhupada in India. He was a young boy, he was a teenager, and I guess he had a really hard life. His name later on became Haridas Das, and he had to do the occupation of stealing things in order to survive. And so he came across a BTG, like a picture of Prabhupada, where Prabhupada was wearing a beautiful watch. And I guess he had received a magazine. He saw that and he thought, I want to meet that founder of the Hare Krishna movement, and I want to steal that watch. Like, that was in his mind. And so he eventually met the devotees and actually moved to, eventually, long story short, he ended up in Prabhupada's room talking to Prabhupada, having darshan, like, because he kept saying, I want to meet the founder. I want to meet, he was like pushing his way there. And Prabhupada directly asked him, like, so what do you want? And he said, and he told Prabhupada, I wanted to take your watch. And Prabhupada said, he said, I want to steal your watch. And Prabhupada said, no need to steal, here, I'll give it to you. And he handed the watch to that boy. And then, that boy was in the association devotees and was gradually transforming. And he ended up becoming a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and, being a dedicated follower. And it's an example of how when we turn to Krishna or the devotees with our baggage, you could say, that it can be transformed. And mystically, we can suddenly, like, he lost his desire to steal things, and he lost his need to do that for a livelihood, whatever. It was just his life became transformed and blessed through that association. So yeah, I wanted to share that in the connection of turning to Krishna with our unmet needs and how he can transform that. Then the third thing is that sometimes there are desires where a third way to look at material desire is that Prabhupada gives the analogy that we sometimes need some salt in our food. We usually do. And we need just the right amount. So Prabhupada even says that in order to function in this material world, we need just the right amount of sense gratification to keep the body and mind together. And so he gave that analogy of the salt. And so thinking, well, I have these desires. I might not be at that level where I can fully connect them all to Krishna or transform them and let them go away. So what do I do day to day? So let me find a way to, like, regulate them, and in a way, and find some moderation, like I would do with cooking. Like, I wouldn't over season it, like trying to find some regulation with the desire so that gradually over time, the desires are automatically mitigated over time. And Krishna consciousness is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Like, because when we do it in the mood of a sprint, we can burn out. Like, I'm just going to let go of everything. I'm not going to do anything for myself anymore. I'm just going to only be focused on Krishna. And if we're not at that level, then burnout can happen. So to find that, like, regulation of just the amount that we need to keep ourselves at peace so that we can continue to serve. And eventually we reach that place of nishta, which is that steadiness. And we're no longer like falling here and there with like, oh, my material desires, we're more steady. It's like, okay, I have enough. I don't need to like, I'm not being pulled in all directions because I found what like a status quo for myself at this point in life. And hopefully channeling those towards Krishna and like connecting them to Krishna as much as possible. I was thinking of that another story with Prabhupada where he, in the early days when Shama Sundar was actually, I'm forgetting the word, carving the deities of Jagannath and Baladev and Subhadra, the first deities in ISKCON, first Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra deities, like bigger set. And he was still in the habit of smoking at the time. He was smoking cigarettes. And so one time Prabhupada came to see how it was going, and he saw a packet of cigarettes on Lord Balaram's head. It was like sitting there because he was carving the wood, and he had left his packet of cigarettes on Balaram's head. And Prabhupada was not judgmental, didn't say anything heavy. He just said, oh, so you are still smoking. And he suggested to him that every day, he told him every day, just stop, one less. So if you're doing 40 or whatever, I don't know, 15, whatever the number was, then every day do one less. And until you don't have to do it anymore. So that was his suggestion to Shama Sundar, and he followed that, and it took him, I think it took him only a week or so, because I think that he wasn't doing so many. So then it just, within a matter of like a week or a little bit more, he was done. He like stopped, and he was able to continue serving without that. So and my reason for sharing that is that Prabhupada was saying this gradually reducing. He didn't say like, stop right now, don't you dare smoke another cigarette. He said, gradually reduce. And so we can find in our lives ways to do, either to find something regulated, or to, if we think this is impeding me, to gradually reduce. Like, okay, I need to wean off this and really like find maybe support. There's like, for things that we feel are too hard for us to deal with alone, we can find support groups and friends that we can share with and help to let go of these stronger attachments. So, and then the fourth thing is reflecting on material desire in the context of the company that we keep. So if Prabhupada would say, if you're associating with a drunkard, then you become a drunkard. And if you're associating with a sadhu, you become a sadhu. So in that kind of spirit, thinking, well, I have these desires, let me just really seek out devotees who have a lot of spiritual desire, and then it'll rub off on me. Like, let me just be in that company, and I don't have to like push away mine, repress mine, do all that kind of thing, because that's just focusing on the negative. But let me add more the company and the association of those who have a real desire to serve Krishna and please Krishna, and then that will fill my cup. It's like when you have, something like some dirty water in your cup, and you're pouring clean water over it, and you're pouring. Eventually the dirty stuff will come out, and you'll just have clean water. So in that spirit of like, okay, I won't focus so much on what my own stuff. I'll just try to hang out with those who have the higher tastes themselves, and that'll help. So those are the four things. So redirecting our misdirected energy by connecting desire to Krishna, and brainstorming ways to do that. And then second, turning to Krishna with material desires that we can't fulfill, like that are really just out of our control, and speaking from our heart to him, revealing our mind and confidence to Krishna. Then the third is finding regulation in the day-to-day dealings with material desire, finding some way to regulate or to slowly reduce, remembering that Krishna consciousness is a steady process. It's not like so extreme. You don't have to do a sprint if you're not ready for that. And the fourth thing is the company we keep, and that can allow us to increase our higher taste. And so finally, I just want to share one final thing. It's this, one of the sins on this, one of the 10 offenses to the holy name is to called Sin on the Strength of Chanting, right? So having, and it's quite heavy. It's like having material attachment, even after hearing so many instructions on this matter. And Mahatma Prabhu gave a class in Krishna House earlier in the week, and he said that that doesn't mean that we can't have desire. It means don't knowingly like say, I'm going to do all these things and then I'm going to go and like purify myself by chanting, or that's when the offense to the holy name comes in. So I just wanted to add this because I think how I used to hear this, like growing up, would be like, oh my gosh, I'm really feeling this one because I still have material desire. And even I've heard so many instructions on this and somehow I'm still struggling with that. So that means I must be, offending the holy name in that way or something. But he said, go, he actually said, go, and if you're going to have desire, go and do your desire, but don't mix it with like, I'm going to now, purify it or rectify it by this process. So he said, I thought that was very encouraging. And so, yeah, those were the things that I came up with for ways to deal with material desire. And we can discuss further things and apply this to our lives. And we can, for those who are listening online, you can brainstorm ways to connect your material desires to Krishna, and ask friends what they do. How do they connect to Krishna, and how do they come up with regulation for their desire? So thank you so much for listening. Hare Krishna.